I never knew that one day I'll be sitting in New York, among these tall buildings with so many kind faces looking at me and listening to my story. I grew up in the northwest region of Cameroon, and as a young girl, I realized a lot of things were going on with the women of my community, which up to now I've had no concrete answers to, but for the fact that they all tell me it's our tradition, it's our culture. But to me, these practices are totally unacceptable. When I was 4 years old, when my grandpa died, I saw my grandma go through obnoxious practices in the name of widowhood rituals. And that haunted me so much. I also saw women being disgraced and beaten by their partners with no justice for them. But none of these things have touched my heart. Like what happened one day when as a 14-year-old girl, I was coming back from school to my grandma's house. I loved spending time with her because she allowed me to play as much as I wanted, unlike my mom, who always wanted me to be disciplined, like most grandmas do. And my cousin was my main companion in that house. She was also 13, a bit younger than myself, but her breasts were beginning to sprout. So when I was approaching my grandma's house that afternoon, I realized the joyful chatters of my cousin, which was the usual thing that attracted me to that house, was absent that afternoon. I could only hear birds singing. When I approached grandma's kitchen, which was at the same time our living room, I noticed my cousin was groaning inside. I peeped through the keyhole and I saw something which has traumatized me the rest of my life up to today. I saw my grandmother warming a stone on the fire and pressing my cousin's breast with, and she was groaning. I didn't understand what that was. I peeped for some time, then I couldn't take it any longer, and I went and sat on a stone nearby. When they came out, no one told me what was going on there, and up to today, my cousin has never told me anything about that. A few months later, my grandma called me into the same kitchen and asked me to take off my shirt. And when I asked why, she said she wanted to fix me. I told her because my breasts were beginning to sprout and they were so painful. At that time, each time my hand touched it, they hurt so much. I told her I don't want anything to come near my chest. I don't want her to fix me. And she told me if she doesn't fix me, then I was going to be spoiled. When I tried to scream, she told me good girls don't talk about their breasts. Good girls don't scream about their breasts. Good girls don't talk about their privacy. I just told her, then I'm going to be a bad girl. And I insisted on screaming. And she stopped. She didn't do that to me. That day I realized there is power in the voice. There is power when you speak out against something going on that you don't like. And I've grown to realize silence is the weapon that is being used on women in my community. You're not allowed to speak about the things that are done against you, especially in your home. So many women are suffering in backyards, in kitchens, and in bedrooms where they have been relegated by men and even sometimes women. And so much is going on that nobody is talking about it. I realized somebody needs to be there for these women. And at my tender age, I wanted to be that person. But it was like I was in a box, like there was no opportunity for me to even have the education I wanted to have. No opportunity for me to have forum to speak. But I kept pressing and pressing. And somehow I got to university. Somehow I got to be the journalist that I wanted to be. And somehow I got a minor in women and gender studies. That to me was like all I wanted in my life. I never knew how I was going to, because in Cameroon when you're a journalist, you're not a rich person, you're an enemy to the public. But I knew I was going to be poor, but one thing I knew was that I was going to be a voice of the voiceless women in my community. When I started working as a journalist, there was no room for me to do the reports I wanted to do. I wanted to report about widowhood rituals, I wanted to report about breast ironing, I wanted to report about domestic violence, but there was no room because all the media organizations are focused on politics, focused on the things that interest the men and not the things that are touching. The media then to me was not the voice of the voiceless, because where then are the stories of these women who are being battered every day? Where then are the stories of these girls who have their breasts ironed every day? Where then are the stories of these old women who are asked to sit on the floor, asked to walk barefooted, asked to cut off their hair, asked to dance naked because they lost their husband in the name of widowhood rituals? No one thought I was having a genuine pain or a reasonable story to tell. But I believed somehow in my heart that there was a solution out there, especially when I got to know about the internet. In August 2011, I was crying on my bed one day with the computer. Someone came to my house who had internet connections on the computer. And I was like, oh my God, this is the whole world. How do I tell these stories? And I Googled telling the stories of women, stories about women.